Welcome to the Omnicast. I'm your host, Tyler Jacobson. Joining me today are Dave Flomberg, the director of content at Modus Persona, the author of Management for Zombies. How long ago did you write that, Dave?
It's what, about 4 years now? 5 years.
Okay. And I know Dave best as just being a very, very, very smart guy. So I'm excited.
Go on now.
That's why you have the beard, so you can't see the blushing. Okay? And also joining me is Colin Jones, co-founder and head of everything, co-head of everything over at WeldWerks. Is it are you singularly or co?
Co-founder, but CEO.
Okay, CEO of WeldWerks. It's a craft brewery. Is that how you would describe it as well?
Yep, absolutely.
And as I've been told, it is the only reason to go up to Greeley.
I think one of several, but let's just at least give people one reason to come to Greeley, and I'm good with that.
Okay, once they get there, they can talk to you and then find the other thing.
Exactly. Fair enough.
So it's a marketing podcast, but today we're going to talk about something that I think applies to almost every business owner, which is how to hire well. And Dave and I have spoken about this previously and I think actually Dave, you were the one who was like, yeah, let's get on there and talk about hiring well on this episode, if I remember correctly. So, and then Colin's girlfriend, Sarah, who I am very good friends with, she said, who knows how to hire well is Colin. So I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say. So right out of the gate, my first question is soft skills or hard skills, or is it both?
Soft. All day. You can train the hard skills. We always have a saying here at WeldWerks that we can train you to do any job. We can train you about beer. We can train you how to run the equipment. We can train you. Like, that's not a problem. We can't change who you are.
All right.
I can't disagree with any of that. Like, that's bottom line. The first thing that you're going to need is chemistry with your team, and who that person is, what they're about, what's their moral compass, what motivates them. Those are the things that matter. It's you can learn how to cut a widget or flip a bit anywhere, but it's what's underneath that matters. Period, across the board in life.
Yep.
And so I have always thought that it really doesn't even matter how much background you have. It's always on-the-job training. You're always learning something at whatever new position you take on. So it's almost impossible to walk through the door with just hard skills and immediately apply them, right?
Absolutely. I think environments are so unique and teams are so unique. Process procedure varies company to company. I mean, there's just too many variables to walk in and immediately apply a hard skill to really any effect, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, there's a baseline, right? Like you're going to need some level of understanding what the job is going to be and whatever that is. My world, which has largely been managing creatives for the last several years. But before that, call centers, the level of acumen is always something that's going to get you in the door and have the conversation. But then it's about everything underneath that after that. So yeah, the hard skills matter, but you're going to adjust those. You're going to change your process. You're going to cater how you work to the environment you're in anyway. So are you adaptable? Are you friendly? Are you empathetic? Yeah, those are the things I look for out of the gate.
Absolutely, and I would add to that too. I mean, we obviously, being a brewery with big machinery and lots of process and procedure and experience needed, we do hire people with great hard skills. The best ones come in very humbly and say, I know all this stuff, but you tell me how you want to apply it. Those are the best ones. The people that come in without any humility or maybe a sense of not mastering or maybe a little bit scared, and they'll lean on that hard skill too much to try to showcase how wonderful they are. It takes a lot of confidence to really just kind of set your skill set on the back burner and just say, show me how you want me to adapt here. And then once you get the teamwork figured out, the environment figured out, then you bring in your hard skill. We hire a lot of young people here, and we've been very, very lucky to have hard skill people, very professional people that know how to put that on the shelf and see the training process through.
Cool. So I had a next question that I think dovetails really nicely, but I don't think it's quite the space. I'm going to ask it anyway. So I would assume that hiring right doesn't even start with the job description. I would assume that it starts before then. But when you're shaping that job description, are you shaping that to somehow allude to those soft skills, or like how are you forming those job descriptions to find that right team? Because that's all hard skills, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for us, it's a little bit of both. We definitely focus on, here are your primary duties and responsibilities, just so they know that what they're getting into and what experience is required. We try not to set those super hard in stone, but just kind of meant to be a guideline, a term of expectation, who you report to, and so on and so forth. So we don't address soft skills very to the nth degree in our job descriptions at WeldWerks.
I think it can be a double-edged sword. I think I'll look at what is the role I need to fill, and I'll grab all the hard skills requirements we need. We'll set that on paper and kind of take a look at what that needs to be and how that needs to be massaged. But I also like to cherry pick. I'm old enough and established enough in my career and in this city where when I see and come across people whose work I value, whose attitude I like, people who ask intelligent questions, people I run into all over the place, networking events like we ran into each other at the Digital Summit. I jot down in my black book who that person is. Look them up on LinkedIn, and I'll go after what I want now. Very often, I'll go target somebody. And then have a longer discussion. And the other thing is being willing to adapt a little bit in what you have envisioned for the role, because especially in my world, I don't know that I've ever hired for a role that I envisioned that I didn't change that role pretty soon based on me really liking that individual candidate, because I wanted that candidate, like they say, get the best players on the field. And when I see a candidate that can bring something that I didn't even expect as a tool to the table to make me better, to make my team better, make my organization better, I will adapt. And I'll say, you know what, this role I originally had in mind was to do this thing, but I think we can add this thing and maybe shape this thing a little bit and change things around. And I'll find that my success rate in that approach has been kind of 100%. Finding good people, if you do that part right, the whole slow to hire, quick to fire mentality of really taking your time to find the right person and the right fit for what it is you need, you're going to be successful at everything else after that. All of the management, stuff that you've got to deal with in life, and as a manager and as a supervisor, as a leader in your organization, if you do that first thing right and hire well, everything else gets way easier. So I really
sounds like, yeah, it sounds like you're going well beyond just picking the person. Now it's modifying your organization or that responsibility to meet that person where they're at and where they're going to shine the best.
I think you have to. I think, again, this is speaking to my world. I know that, when I was managing a call center for Comcast, it was a little bit different, in the way you have to approach that. But as a creative, I had in a company of 9 people now, and I was, startups with Examiner.com and, and as a faction media, similar. You have the luxury of leading your shop and adjusting to the market as well as to opportunities that are in front of you. And if you're smart about pivoting when you can, whether that's the individual you're hiring or the work you're doing, you'll get the longevity and success you're looking for, I think.
Does that apply for you too, Colin?
It really does. We lean a little bit more towards both on his points of prospecting. I can't suggest that enough. For us, we don't such a close-knit community. We try not to pick off people from other breweries just to stay in good graces and not steal everybody. But one of our best hires was just a great waiter at a restaurant that everybody from the brewery visited, and this guy was just a hustler, and we saw it every day, and told him one day, you're going to be with us when you're ready for that. Just come talk to us, please. So just keeping your pipeline filled, or if you get resumes out of the blue and they look sharp, talk to them. Even if you don't have a job position open, talk to them, create that connection, stay in touch with them. We respond to every single resume that comes into WeldWerks just to maintain that connection. But we conversely, compared to David's approach, we architect the team around that surprise individual. So rather than just change that particular role, we'll reevaluate the entire team and recreate how that team works together and what that team does and what each position within the team does if we just happen to get an absolute superstar.
Okay. This seems like an obvious one, but I suspect that it's not. How can I tell that I'm not hiring well?
Oh, man. You'll probably see it in the faces of your other employees pretty quick. That'd be my guess.
Yeah, that's a great start.
Yep, you'll start to suffer some customer service issues or whatever your product is, customer service or an actual hard product. It just won't be right. In my opinion, too, it'll be a position or a staff member that keeps coming back with issues like, well, I'm just having a problem with this priority and that, and like, how do I fit this all in with what you guys expect? Like, it's just not easy. Not that people need to be easy, not that hiring ever is easy, but there definitely comes a point where there's just so many roadblocks where it's like, this is harder than hell to implement this role, and it just shouldn't be. I truly feel like when it works out, it works out. Let's not try to force it too much.
Comes down to the other management things I was talking about. If you're having to spend time doing those things instead of, managing, if you're having to spend more time managing people than you are, doing the work that you want to be doing, then that's probably a good sign that you're misfiring somewhere. I think, Colin hit it with the rest of your team will clue you in real quick if you got a bad fit. And I do believe that, you can work with people. Like I said, I'm really proud of my record on hiring well. I've definitely inherited people that have been more of a challenge to work with, and finding ways to mitigate that, especially when you have someone who might be a savant in a certain area, someone who's just really amazing at something, but maybe has some emotional, some EQ problems or, isn't necessarily a good chemistry fit. If you can find ways to work that out, that's great. But the team will self-regulate pretty quick when you've got more than 2 or 3 people in there, and let you know when you're misfiring on that first cylinder.
I would also say an accommodation of non-negotiables, a constant accommodation of non-negotiables. If said person is forcing you to not commit or to bend your management ethos or the way you intend to lead your company, if they're making you bend to their will, that's when things really start to go sideways for us. And in a very simplistic approach, we are non-micromanagers here at WeldWerks. It is just part of our ethos, and that's who we hire, and that's how we lead. If you hire somebody and they need constant micromanagement, that's, there we go. Moving on.
Right, but you've set that boundary not to be
precisely. Yeah, exactly right. And we say that up front, that we make sure that in any sort of interview and in communication about the job, that we are communicating what those core values and those management ethoses are.
Okay. So I want to know about the best interviewee you've ever had, if you guys are open to speaking about that.
Wow. I'll launch just because it was pretty super recent. We had a fellow that was working for a competitor, and we were all in the land of beer. We're all doing a lot of festivals and everything, and so I think on the call we had 5 people, and 3 of us were just in other countries or doing other things. And so this was a phone call interview, and this person it really truly was one of the best interviews I've ever heard. I didn't really speak on that call too much, so I just kind of listened more than I spoke. It wasn't for my team. I was just just eyes and ears, and I'd maybe ask this or that based on what I heard, but it was for a functional area that has a leader, and so he was running the interview. But this person just hit it off in every single way. Just prepared, well spoken, kept on track. Just you could tell the guy's been through the ringer a lot. He's been in those bad employers and bad jobs, and was really not pushing himself to make a change unless it felt right to him. And I always appreciate that when somebody's not desperate, or we're not trying too hard. We're both coming at it from a place of, I really like you and they really like us, and like, let's just dig into this a little bit further. There's no need. There's no absolute critical need. There's no bloviated desire that's beyond anything other than this person's ability to add to your team. And it was just really beautiful to see somebody play that out very wonderfully in a verbal, non in-person interview. It's very unique.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of that stick out, but I think for me, generally speaking, it's when the interview can be its own animal, where it becomes its own song, so to speak. That conversation takes on its own life. When you can feel that comfort with another individual and that connection, that's usually a pretty good sign to me. I've definitely had some employees that I've hired who weren't great interviews, because I could see something a little bit past their social anxiety in the interview moment. And that's kind of what I try to look a little deeper for, because I think, especially in my world where I'm not hiring, for salespeople or people who do spend a lot of time with client management. I'm usually looking for, writers and designers and things like that, who tend to be a slightly different breed, or even more difficult sometimes is developers, when I have to bring on someone who's doing programming, and there's a whole nother personality type that kind of falls into that world. So finding the gem in those roughs is about kind of looking a little bit past just their ability to have a sparkling witty conversation, and kind of connect with them on an empathetic level. Ultimately, what I'm looking for is someone to do me a favor. And I think that's a problem a lot of managers have, is they think that they're coming into a situation to do you a favor by hiring you. We're going to give you this job. Well, no, I'm asking you to come work and do something to help my organization be better. You're doing me the favor by agreeing to sign on here to be paid to do work and accept our boundaries and our culture and the things that we do. So, to me, the humility is even more important on my side of the table, and allowing that person to feel comfortable and trying to do what I can to do that. But then the little soft cues and picking up what makes them tick is what matters the most to me.
So I'm curious, in that, Dave, and actually Colin, feel free to pipe up in this as well. Are you looking, how does it feel when somebody breaks down that question and answer structure and tries to make it more of a dialogue? Does it feel forced? Does it feel like somebody's taking over that interview? Do you welcome it? Are you looking for somebody to do that and kind of really, pull you out of that structured format?
I don't mind it at all, as long as it's organic. I mean, you'll see through it real quick. Is this a car salesman who's trying to really manage this and force down a path, or is it someone who's going to have a conversation with you? It's like playing jazz. It's when it's at its best, It's a conversation between everyone in the band building off of what they're doing at the same time and improvising together. And you'll feel that, like, you know, like on a date or anything else, you'll feel that connection. And that if that's organic, that's great. And if it's not, you'll know that too. And then you can push back a little bit and steer things to where you need them to go.
So when you say it's like jazz, you're saying listen to the questions they're not answering?
Both. The space matters a lot, man. Like Miles said, that white space counts. You know, it's what's between the bars.
Exactly. How they carry themselves. And to your point, Dave, you just, you know, you're doing an interview and then all this, like, you just you're not tracking the time. You're like, oh my God, like don't go. Like, let's keep hanging out. Let's keep having lunch, or let's keep this interview going. Like, it just, you blink and you're at the end of the road with it. And it was just all natural to get all the way there, and no awkward pauses or, you know, on the other end of that, having comfortable silence and everybody being okay with that for a second. And it's just natural.
Yeah. I think, you know, in my world, it's all about storytelling. That's what we do. That's, you know, so I do look for people who tell a good story, and it doesn't have to be about necessarily the specific topic, but how are you at telling me a good story?
So now we go back to that whole soft skills thing, right? Can I get along with you? Are you personable? Are we going to be able to engage each other?
But I think the test too is, again, to Dave's point, some of our best hires have been some of our worst interviews. It's about,
that was question number 2.
Yeah, it's about having that empathy as a hiring person, as a manager, as a leader, having hired enough people poorly that you understand what that looks like, and having been through the ringer enough to be comfortable with that process and dig into it and look past what you're just seeing on face value, but to understand and trust your own internal signals, and then bounce them off of people ex post facto and just say, how did you read it? And they say it, and then you're like, that's not it. Like, yeah, he was super nervous and everything, and I get it. We're hiring for a customer service role. Like, this person's going to be in front of people, but you know what? At the end of the day, this guy's going to try really damn hard, and he's never going to let his teammates down. That is how this kid was built. He just has that level of empathy. He's just not going to do it, and he would bust butt to ensure that he never does it. And so it's just a guessing game, but trusting that gut and that experience that you have as an individual with your past hires and fires.
Yeah, learning from those mistakes, and I can't stress enough that it's really incumbent upon the hiring manager to lead with empathy in everything they do. As a manager, as a business owner, as whatever your role is, when you're looking for that hire, when you're trying to get the most out of what your team can do, leading with empathy will serve you in every aspect. And, you know, and I'm curious to see if you have questions to get into it, but inclusion is and that's definitely a problem in my field, because I never get enough resumes or points of interest from people of color. I imagine it's also probably a problem in Greeley, but definitely for creative industry, like, I'm actively keeping my eyes open for more women, for more people of color, because for me to be successful, we've got to have that voice in the room. You know, when we're creating, when we're marketing, when we're looking at our gamut of clients and who their customers are, it is to me the single biggest problem, at least in Colorado. In the creative field is we need more of that, and what can I do to find it is always the thing that I'm trying to, you know, keep my viewport focused on.
I would certainly add age to that as well. I don't know if you said that or not, but hiring
but yes,
older people than maybe you're even older than me. I'm one of the oldest in the company, and I'm still feeling pretty damn young. But let's not just, you know, poo-poo the 55-year-old, the 60-year-old, the 65-year-old, the whoever. If those people, again, to our earlier points, if those people can bring their life experiences humbly, put them on a shelf, figure out how the team works, figure out their role and everything else, and then bring that experience down and lead with it on the end instead of trying to lead with it on the front, those are really wonderful hires as well. They bring an aspect of maturity and leadership to an otherwise young culture.
I like that. I appreciate that. I appreciate all of that and all of those perspectives. I actually don't have any questions around that, Dave. It sounds like you actually answered and justified why you need those people who are maybe not well represented in the creative field, at least in a corporate structure, marketing.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
So, not enough.
Do either of you guys have HR filters that resumes have to go through?
Currently. I have in the past, but today I don't. And when I had them, I pretty much kiboshed them pretty quickly. And this isn't a slam on an entire industry, but I have yet to work with a corporate side, client side HR team that was effective in pre-screening what I wanted to see. And every time that's happened, I've ended up telling them, stop screening, just send me everything and I'll do it. Because they're screening out great people. In fact, multiple times I've had that happen where, whoever was responsible for handling that gate screened someone that I found later by going back through the earlier emails and brought in and hired. And then, I provided that feedback to that person, but they're either they're using software that is, algorithm based on keyword usage, and someone who's hasn't worked with the right resume builder program screwed up on that end, and you're missing out on great talent that way. Or they themselves are so locked into hard skills and the requirements that the company has kind of either forced you to or that you've put on there that they're not opening the valve to let the right ones through. And I have yet to see that happen, and I'm sure that there are people out there who are great at it. I just haven't worked with them yet.
And you worked in some larger organizations at director level, if I read your LinkedIn correctly, right, Colin?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep. Operations oriented, enterprise, multi locations, several different departments, the whole 9 yards. Yeah.
Did you have an HR filter in those organizations?
To Dave's point, some were attempted and were quickly kiboshed. And now internally at WeldWerks, we have a pretty good cachet, thankfully, and we get several resumes each week. I mean, probably to the tune of maybe 10 to 15, just out of the blue. And then when we do a job posting, it's fire. It's just madness. But we look at every single resume that comes in. Again, we're talking about leadership ethos, management ethos. It is absolutely expected that everybody at the leadership level reviews every resume that comes in, because we have the filter or the funnel kind of a thing where it comes into one address, goes out to many, yada yada. And at the very least, we will simply respond to that person. Hey, thanks for everything. We'll keep it on file. Everything else. But if somebody happens to just say, I'm kind of curious about this one, we'll flag it and we'll start our process.
Cool. So, I mean, it sounds like I'm actually wanting to jump back here now that I actually do have questions around hiring people of color, of diverse age backgrounds, things like that. Do you see other people in your industries also seeking to hire non-represented groups in your industries?
Not enough. I think it's an institutional problem that I've seen. The common response I hear is, we're looking at the resumes we're getting, and that's usually where it ends. And it's like, that's frustrating to me. That to me says, well, if they're not applying, what can I do? And that speaking as a white male, that's us washing our hands of responsibility for something that we need to take more active involvement in fixing. And that gets to a bigger social, discussion
for
across
sure.
the board. But I really feel like it's my duty to do the best I can for my company. I shouldn't be the token person of color in the room when we're looking at things, because I only happen to be the only person who's seeing it through a certain lens. Just being a guy who grew up in more in the inner city high school, or having a Jewish background, or being outrageously progressively liberal, whatever that thing is. It shouldn't be just me. I need people who come from different parts of the world, different parts of the socioeconomic backgrounds, colors, creeds, genders, orientations, all of that things to be able to tell stories that resonate with people who are different colors, creeds, genders, orientations, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different places of the world. Like, you've got to have that perspective if you want to tell stories that resonate with them. There are universal themes, but those stories need to have that flavor, that influence. So to be better at our jobs as marketers, we need them in the room. And I think that there's a lot of lip service starting to happen to it, and everyone says, we're equal opportunity. We were trying hard. Come be a part of our organization, doing everything they can on a broadcast message. But I don't see people really hunting and seeking and looking at ways to get more active in different communities to bring those candidates, to make them feel comfortable to approach and come into the room and work for that, or working at the college level and being more involved with internships and looking for those opportunities to bring in younger talent, and work with them and grow them and help nourish the talent that they have in the job that you're trying to fill. Things like that.
What about you, Colin?
Yeah, in our industry, it's really tough. I mean, obviously, beer brewery, beer trends male, and in Colorado, it trends bearded white male to the point that sometimes I probably have like 20 friends in the brewery industry in Colorado. They all really kind of look alike, and I'll see them, and I'm like, I got to pause a second and be like, oh yeah, you, because they all look the same. I hate saying that, but it's just a dominated industry in that way. But we also have the layers, because we are a production facility. We have absolute requirements for lifting and things you can handle, and some of the stuff is 150 pounds that you got to kind of lift above your head, and that's tough. I can barely do most of that stuff myself. But to Dave's point, our goal is to review everybody, not to go into it with preconceived notions that, well, skip over that name because it sounds female and this job requires a 100-pound lift. No, let's talk to them, and if they're a good fit, if they can lift it, great. If they can't, maybe we need better equipment. Maybe we need a piece of equipment that won't break everybody's back, and that will get that 150 pounds above their shoulders and onto the right way. There's little things that you can do just in terms of plan investment and kind of ergonomics related concerns that you can accommodate a job. It's no different than return to work programs on work comp, modified duty, just doing the basics of trying to fit the role to what that person's ability is. If they're a great teammate, that is the biggest thing that we're trying to solve. We'll figure out the rest. The rest is on us to figure out, I feel. And so we look at it through that lens. But today's point as well, we're also not going into different communities and trying to pull. We're probably sitting back on our laurels a little bit too much and enjoying these resumes that just happen to be coming in from fans or whatever. And we really haven't had to look too hard, but we definitely experience better team dynamics when there's diversity on that team.
Yeah, this is what I love hearing from both of you too, is that it's very much a two-way street. It's about making sure that person can integrate into your businesses, but that your businesses are also going to be yielding and forming around that person who you feel is such a good fit. And I heard that in that last answer there from you too, Colin. And that was just, it's really cool to see that side of it. I think that'll be very helpful to a lot of people.
And again, I sorry to interrupt you. I think again, that's we had a situation and this person was just being tone deaf. In terms of handling a particular clientele. And again, like, we're not going to accommodate our non-negotiables. You're going to treat everybody with respect and not come at it from a lens of this, that, or the other. And when the rest of the staff see the swift and quick action that we take, even though this person didn't, really wasn't horrible in person, just kind of made some side comments to the rest of the team behind the scenes, we don't even tolerate behind the scenes talk that doesn't aim us towards that being that inclusionary type of company that we so desperately hope to be. So again, it's just nipping that in the bud in terms of company culture and making sure that those bad actors are removed before they cause further trouble.
Okay. So, Dave, you and I had talked about how I need a new business person. And we were like, hey, maybe we can get in that. Now, I don't want to take up a ton of time, but what's your advice on how I should even begin to approach that?
Well,
because your first question to me was junior or senior, and I'm like, I don't know, not really.
Yeah, I think having a good idea of what your budget is to get things up and rolling, what might help you determine that. But the flip side of that is if you hire a senior person who's really expensive, can they come in and pay you the dividend right away? They might. That's entirely possible. For me, when I look at it, since we're in a very similar industry and approach to what we do, and we're both creatives in that world, in marketing, I think where I've seen the most success in my last few forays in this industry is when you target your client list pretty well and you actually have an idea. We preach account-based marketing, plenty in this industry, but when we do it ourselves and we are looking for the right clients to have long-term lasting, relationships with, that should be kind of the thing that starts, okay, who would we best, if I want that client, what kind of person am I going to need to help me get that client?
Right.
So that would be, one of the things that I, work backwards from, what is my goal as far as my client roster, as far as the kinds of work I want to do. And it may not be logos, it may not be what's the NASCAR logo I want to slap on my ride. It may more be, I want to be doing this kind of work exclusively, or more than I have been doing. And if I can figure out what that is, then, we can see, start to put that map on the wall with all the thumbtacks and the red thread all over the place to connect to the personalities that gel with making inroads in that industry. And then layer on top of that, okay, now how do I diversify my client roster or my internal team, and how do I find that level of inclusion I need to get to that place? But junior or senior, everyone wants a junior person that functions at a senior level. Everyone wants, especially in Colorado, where our overall level of pay is so skewed for what we ask for. I'm seeing, senior director of marketing roles for like $70,000 a year out there and things like that.
Right.
And you've got, as a Gen Xer, I'm also watching both millennials and boomers saying they want basically the same things. Like they're pretty aligned in what it is they want in terms of work that matters, feeling valued, culture, being paid a reasonable wage for what it is they bring to the table. And so when you kind of take a step back and look at those things, I always say, plan on paying more than you want. You're just going to get better talent, for one thing, if you're smart about that advertising, about how you're putting that out there. But given the opportunity, yeah, I would look for demanding a lot from the person you're looking for that role, but also compensating really well for it. And you'll know real fast if you're pulling the trigger incorrectly on that. But I think when you look at and again, the way that we talk about the networking and knowing who we're looking for, I say, keep an eye on the people that you meet and that you want, and go get them. That's how I try to work now, especially at a senior level. I'm like, that is the person, that is the human being I want. I'm going to go get that human being rather than I want someone just like Joe. I'll just go get Joe. What's it going to take to get Joe?
Right.
Or Darlene or Christina or whoever.
So just you brought up something interesting. Do you find that pay is a factor in hiring well as well?
It is, and anyone who says it isn't, I think is looking to. I won't say it's a false narrative, but I say it's not about so much about how much the money is, but what that money represents to the individual you're hiring. Do you value them? And today we live in a society that puts the value on human capital at a dollar level. Whether that's right or wrong, that's just what we do. That's how we've all kind of agreed to do this thing that we do. So, yeah, money counts. And I think people are kind of seeing through the unlimited vacation or the ping pong in the break room or the, free sodas. They're seeing through that more and more. Like the perks discussion is, I want good benefits. I want good health benefits. I want a good vacation policy. I want matching on my 401k. All of those things. That's total compensation package. But I definitely see companies start to like leak in things like our wellness program or, our 3 times a week free lunch from Panera program, and actually starting to put those on the total compensation package discussion. And that's like, at that point, you're being disingenuous, So yeah, money counts. That's just it is just a meter, and it's a measure of what says to the person that we value you enough to pay for you for what you're worth. And we're in Colorado, where the level of income, and I mentioned this earlier, is not what it should be for the work that people are asked to do. Like, people can't afford to live here. So if you want a junior person, you're still going to have to pay more of a living wage than you would in any of the surrounding states just to get them to be able to afford to live here. Because you don't want, someone who's going to be stressed about making ends meet anyway. You want someone who's going to feel like, I can focus on this job and not worry about paying my bills or have to drive a Lyft or an Uber on the weekend to make those things connect. Mm-hmm. I could go on and on and on about this, but I don't mean to hijack the.
No, it's Colin. I see you nodding your head with Dave's response there. Is that correct?
Well, it just goes back to when we kind of started in on this, just talking about empathy. How the hell would you want to be treated? You willing to give up a good portion of your pay to get that Panera lunch? I don't think so. At the end of the day, I think we all equate the job we do to just pay me for a job well done. That's first and foremost. But then also to Dave's point, there are definite core perks that involve a healthy and stable employee environment with health benefits and vacation time and whatnot. So again, just a supporting, resounding yes for everything that Dave said there.
Okay. So Colin, is there any last bit of advice you'd give to any other business owner that maybe we haven't touched on yet? And it's okay if you don't. If you do, I would love to hear it.
I had a good time listening to you guys talk about the junior senior, and I think it's a very, very valid question, but it also goes back to how you've architected your environment, both from a leadership and management standpoint. I particularly lean junior, but that is because we have built-in systems to grow individuals through positions. So we have many layers and levels, and you can just kind of gin up that way. And I also trend a little bit towards an unproven person that maybe will kind of soak in our way of being a little bit easier than if they were coming from the corporate world or whatnot. Again, not that I'm going to apply a filter to a resume and say like, oh, that's maybe not a good fit and not give them a time of day. I'm just saying there's something to be said with somebody that lacks management experience that maybe you think has the possibility, and you have a good training program in place and a good management system in place, that this person could grow to become that senior level person. But I think more importantly than that is to attack it well in advance. I think timeliness is something that people don't talk about enough, and probably I would guess that the worst decisions get made because it's crunch time and you absolutely have to get a warm body in to fulfill the job. Like you're just going to sink otherwise. And so to be ahead of the game and to hire before the need really starts to rear its ugly head allows that slow hire process that Dave was referring to. It allows that training opportunity to take place. It allows you to tell the story of your corporate culture and to really connect with the employee before they blink and then they're working 45 hours a week just trying to keep up with everything that's going on in the company. So I think that timeliness element is a critical piece that if you're out ahead enough of it, you're going to make better decisions by being cognizant of it.
Same question to you, Dave. Is there any bit of advice that you want to throw out there that we haven't touched on yet?
That we haven't touched on yet. I think we have a tremendous opportunity when you're in the position of being able to hire that hopefully is about not just backfilling a role, and it's about growing your organization. The best way to hire is to never have to hire, and to be able to have a great team that's always spinning and doing great things. But then when you do have to hire, it's about growth rather than someone left. Why did they leave? So the managerial aspects of running your shop, to me, are as important as anything else. Of building a culture. My father used to say this, and I bought it wholeheartedly, that you can't motivate somebody. All you can do is create the environment by which they can motivate themselves or bring their motivation to bear. So creating that environment of surrounding yourself and genuinely looking for people who are smarter than you, believing that you're not the smartest guy, which has always been my problem, is I want to be that smartest guy in the room. And that's my own ego getting in the way of me doing the best job I can, is by saying, shut up and listen. And every time I've said to myself, shut up and listen, it has just paid me off in tenfold. Like it's gotten me to the point in my career now where I know I can be successful because I know how to shut up and listen. And when you've got enough of the right people in the room of different backgrounds and walks of life, you're going to just get better and better at that. So don't fall into the trap as a hiring manager of thinking that you're a leader because people choose to follow you. And that's because you have earned their trust. You have made them feel valued. You have made them feel like they can contribute something that matters. And you let them make mistakes even on occasion when it's the wrong decision too. So that culture, that environment is what we should all be striving to build with our teams. And when you do that, success is from there. Cult of the customer, Chef Hyken's discussion of employees happy first. Keep the team happy, keep them focused on, and they'll take care of the customer every time.
Cool. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking a time out of your day to share all of this with us. It was really insightful.
For sure. The opportunity.
Yeah, and visit the show notes. We'll have information on how you can find Dave and how you can find Colin. That'll be at omniphonic.com. And if you found this at all helpful, please leave us a review on iTunes, and that'll make it easier for us to know what to deliver to you in the future and help other people find us. So thanks. Until next time.
Thank you, guys.